Good afternoon, everyone. It is 2:05 p.m., and I hereby call this meeting back from recess. I want to welcome everybody here to your Senate chamber. This afternoon, the EAGI committee will be examining the credentials of Ms. Tracy B. Norita, nominated for the position of Secretary, Department of Finance. I'd first like to introduce the members of the Legislative Bureau who are assisting us. We have Legal Counsel, Mr. Joe Bermudez. We have the Legislative Assistant assigned to the EAGI Committee, Mr. Devin Macaranas. We have IT Assistant to the Manager, Mr. Delbert Camacho. And to keep order and decorum at all times in the chamber, we have our Senior Sergeant at Arms, Mr. Pedro Tawai. We are here today to examine, like I said, the nomination of Ms. Tracy Norita. And this is part of the legislature exercising its authority under statute to examine the credentials beyond personal or professional standing of all cabinet nominees. And that is why you are here today. This morning, we examined the credentials of nominee Mr. Clement R. Bermudez for the Department of Public Safety. And we have concluded that nomination. We are not here to vote to confirm or to reject. This committee will simply be making recommendations to the full Senate body who has the authority to vote or reject a nominee. And this afternoon, we will be doing something a little bit different than what we did this morning. I state for the record that I have a conflict of interest with the nominee. She is my niece, second degree, familial relationship. So at this time, I would like to ask the Vice Chair, Senator Donald Manglonia, to come up to the dais and preside over the remainder of this hearing.
Thank you, Chair Selena. At this time, we will now open the floor to public comments. But before we invite members of the public to make their comments, I invite the nominee to join us up in the chamber, as well as the essay for administration. Okay, and before we entertain public comments at this time, I recognize Mr. Babauta to introduce the nominee.
Thank you, Chair Pro Tem. Once again, we met again this afternoon. I was offered a temporary housing by Senator Selena's office. I'm very grateful again, Mr. Chairman and members, Senator Mendiola, and also as well as Senator Selena Babauta. Buenos dias. Good afternoon, Hafaday Dantiro, Chairman Pro Tem Donald Manglonia, and honorable members of your esteemed committee. For the record, my name is Oscar M. Babauta, Special Assistant for the Administration for the Office of the Governor. On behalf of Governor Arnold I. Palacios and that of Lieutenant Governor David Mundo Apatang, I thank you once again, for the opportunity to appear before you this afternoon. I'm here to introduce the Governor's nominee for Secretary of Finance, none other than Ms. Tracy Babauta Norita. Again, this is not the Babauta hearing day. Just for humor this afternoon, Chairman Pro Tem, Mrs. Norita joined the Commonwealth Government in 2014 as a technical financial analyst under the Office of Management and Budget. In that capacity, she joined the governor's single audit committee as the single audit coordinator. She then served as the director of division of revenue and taxation under the Department of Finance since 2019. At the same time, in 2017, she took part in the Executive Leadership Development Program, ELDP, commissioned by the U.S. Department of Interior, Office of Insular Affairs, Pacific Island Training Initiatives. Ms. Norita is a graduate of Washington State University with a bachelor's in business administration, majoring in management operation. Governor Palacios and Lieutenant Governor Apatang once again place their full trust and confidence in Mrs. Norita's ability and capability to serve as the next Secretary of Finance. I know she stands ready to answer your inquiry present to her this afternoon and other plans for Department of Finance in the Commonwealth. Her long history of professional experience, credentials, and commitment to serving the Commonwealth in these capacities makes her a viable candidate, and the administration respectfully and humbly ask for your expeditious recommendation for approval to the full Senate on your next available session. Thank you again, Pro Tem Chair Donald Manglonia, Jesus Masi, and Giliso for the opportunity to be here with you again in this August body. Jesus Masi once again, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you, S.A. Babauta. At this time, I will open the floor for public comments. If any of the members of the public wishes to make their comment, please state your name as well as the entity you may be representing. Thank you.
Yes. Good afternoon, Pro Tem Chair Senator Manglonia, Madam Chair Selena Babauta, and Senator Dennis Mendiola. Good afternoon and off a day. For the record, I submitted my letter of support earlier to the committee, I think 2 or 3 days ago. My name is Jose Simafnas. I'm the Director of the Division of Customs and Biosecurity. And I'm here to express my full support for the nomination of Ms. Tracy Norita as the Department of Finance Secretary. I have worked alongside with Ms. Norita for several years, and I can attest to her qualification and exceptional leadership skills. Ms. Norita's knowledge as a former analyst at the Office of Management and Budget and Director of the Division of Revenue and Tax gave her that experience in financial management, budgeting, and strategic planning. As the acting SOF, I have observed her in her capacity to create and implement financial policies and procedures that address the current financial strains the Sinamay government is facing. Ms. Norita has that drive to foster positive working relationships with her staff and her division directors. She's a team player and a capable leader. In closing, again, I wholeheartedly endorse her nomination. And may I ask you and your committee members to endorse to the full Senate body to confirm Ms. Tracy Norita to be the Secretary of Finance. And may I be the first division director to address her as boss. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Mafnas.
Hafa and good afternoon. Honorable Senator Donald Manglonia, Pro Tem Chair, Honorable Senator Selena Babauta, Chair, EAGI and JGL, and members of the committee. I'm Daphne Mansipit Shimizu, and I am the Director for the Department of Revenue and Taxation in Guam. And along with me today, I actually have with me another colleague from Guam. She is the controller for the Guam Department of Education. Her name is Ms. Josie Villanueva. She's here with us. She is also the president of the Guam chapter for the Association of Government Accountants. And I want to just thank you for this opportunity to provide testimony in support of the nomination for Mrs. Tracy B. Narita for the position of Secretary for the Department of Finance. I first met Tracy in 2019 when I traveled here to Saipan to attend the All Island Tax Administrators Association conference. She'd literally just given birth right before the conference, but she made sure that she made it to the opening ceremony. And her being there to greet our federal partners and our counterparts from the other island nations spoke volumes about her commitment to her team and to her role as the leader of her agency. I got to know Tracy better in 2020 as we worked to address the various challenges that were faced by our respective governments at the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was a terrifying time. We had no idea what COVID was. We didn't understand how it was being transmitted. We couldn't see it. And people around the world were dying. And as leaders in our tax agencies, Tracy and I, and the leaders of the tax agencies from the other insular areas had the responsibility of getting out programs like the Economic Impact Payment Program, which would provide much needed aid for our people. In what we would call normal times, such a task would have been challenging. During COVID-19, with the added pressure of being responsible for the health and safety of our teams and our families and ourselves, working to turn around such a program as quickly as possible, which was required by law, and dealing with the fear of this unknown attack from COVID-19, this task was Herculean. But at the forefront of it all, Tracy had in mind how important this was for her people. I was very impressed with Tracy during the many meetings we had with the IRS. It was clear that she was not only knowledgeable, but that she was not afraid to ask questions, not afraid to take on such a daunting task. Over the last few years, Tracy was tasked with implementing several other federally authorized programs to include EIP2, EIP3, and the Advanced Child Tax Credit. This has meant working on system programming, reviewing plan terms, and working with the federal government while ensuring that the best interests of the community are a priority. These were unprecedented times which called for people like Tracy to truly lead as we were treading in unknown territory. I have a great deal of respect for Tracy. I traveled today just to Saipan specifically to be here to support her nomination. I believe she would be an asset to any organization that she's a part of. She is not only intelligent, hardworking, and determined, but passionate and compassionate. She cares for her team and the people of her island, and I am confident that she will make an amazing Secretary of Finance. Again, undanklu na situas maasi for having me here today and for giving me the opportunity to provide testimony in support of this nomination. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Shimizu, and welcome to the Sinimai.
Good afternoon. Hafade Zantero, Pro Tem Chair Menglonia, Madam Chair Babauta, and honorable members, Senator Mendiola. My name is Virginia Castro Villagomez. I am the Special Assistant for the Office of Management and Budget. I am here today before the committee to express my support for the administration's nominee, Ms. Tracy Babauta Narita, to be the next Secretary of Finance. Tracy joined her public service career on June 2nd, 2014, after returning home with her family following the completion of her spouse's active duty service from the United States Navy. I recall the day I reached out to Tracy sometime in April 2014 to offer an opportunity to embark in a career in the public sector. During our phone conference, Tracy expressed interest in returning home with an opportunity to join the public school system. I respected her candidness, but my persistence reminded her that bigger opportunities to excel is available in the Office of the Governor under the Office of Management and Budget, or with the Department of Finance. Before our conversation ended, Tracy expressed her desire to weigh both opportunities, and she will let us know of her decision. While in the waiting process, I vetted Tracy's credentials to the late Governor Eloy S. Inos and why she would be an exceptional candidate to fill a public sector position. The late governor agreed, and not too long, Tracy accepted the opportunity. Tracy was fortunate to start off her career under the helm of the late governor. She entered a position unique to her as an analyst for programs and financial management under the Office of the Governor, Office of Management and Budget. She discovered the importance of the role of the budget office within the government, that public funds are managed efficiently and according to law. Tracy's role was not limited to budget. She was also assigned to projects like the single audit. Having assigned this task, she was determined to find effective solutions and methods to improve our internal procedures as recommended by federal granting agencies. Tracy saw the importance of continuity to improve current systems and procedures within the government. She envisions opportunities as a way to challenge her abilities to learn and be skilled. She was instrumental in the implementation of the Service as a Software program, making the budget formulation efficient prior to parting OMB to be the next Director of Revenue and Taxation. In her infant tenure with the Division of Revenue and Taxation, she saw the need to improve the collection of revenues, not just through walking up to the cashier and making a payment, but through an innovative and an efficient way to collect certain revenues through the online portal payment system available today through her leadership. Tracy was dedicated, focused, and equipped with the resources and tools to guide her to develop viable and meaningful solutions when it comes to managing our government resources. Her resource access, to name a few, and participation through multiple organizations like the Government Finance Officers Association, the Island Government Finance Association, the Association of Pacific Island Public Auditor, the Graduate School, enhanced her capability, earned her skill set, built her confidence, and her continued commitment to improve the culture of our organization and processes has molded and prepared her to be the next Secretary of Finance. Throughout her public sector career, Tracy Babauta Norita has proven her capacity to lead with integrity that this administration desires to rebuild the trust in our government, more importantly in the areas of government efficiency and fiscal accountability of public funds that our Commonwealth deserves. Pro Tem Chair, Madam Chair, and honorable members, your vote of confidence and confirmation of Tracy Babauta Norita to be the next Secretary of Finance is important for the Commonwealth, and I respectfully ask for your support. Thank you, Jesus Moasi Geluso.
Thank you, S.A. Villagomez. Floor is still open, and please feel free to use the middle seat so you're closer to the nominee.
Hafaday and Tito, Pro Tem Chairman Manglonia, Chairwoman Babauta, and honorable members of this committee. My name is Jasmine Lazama Camacho, a senior financial analyst under the Office of Management and Budget. I'm here in full support of the Honorable Governor Arnold I. Palacios and Honorable Lieutenant Governor David M. Apatang nomination of Mrs. Tracy Babauta Narita for the position as Secretary of Department of Finance. Tracy and I go way back. Not only are we related, she is also my best friend. Although I am a few days older than her, she is one of the very few that I look up to. We share a very small circle of friends, and I can honestly say that she is our idol. She is always the most matured one who gave great advice and is unbiased. We attended elementary, junior high, and high school together. Tracy started building her leadership skills at a very young age. She held the role as president for the student council for all 3 levels of her primary education. And to add, she was also a member of the 9th Youth Congress in 2006. Her leadership skills matured as she matured. In our adult life, we separated for our college years. Her leadership after college, we became colleagues in the government under the Office of Management and Budget for 6 years until she became the Director of Rev and Tax under the Department of Finance. While we were colleagues, Tracy demonstrated her passion and commitment for the government. She contributed her knowledge and leadership skills during the 6 years with OMB. She was the single audit committee coordinator and helped reduce the CNMI's question cost by 24 million. And she was also able to secure and implement our first budget software to help OMB with the budget formulation process and upgrading the presentation of our budget book. I can't say much while she was at Rev and Tax, but I do know that her characteristics that she presented at OMB, she brought with her to Rev and Tax. She has set goals for the division and has accomplished them and continues to do so. Tracy, in her acting capacity as Secretary of Finance, has demonstrated so many skills and characteristics this important role requires. I'd like to focus on 4 of them, which are her communication skills, time management, her team building skills, and her positive energy. Being with OMB for nearly 10 years now, Tracy can agree with me that communication is key in the financial aspect of our budget formulation between the Department of Finance and OMB. And she demonstrated that well during our revised budget that is now in the hands of the Fiscal Affairs Committee. It would not have been an easy and smooth process if the communication wasn't there between the 2 agencies. Tracy's time management skills are on point. And I say this because she never once showed any signs of procrastination. She manages her time by prioritizing and delegating based on importance and urgency. Tracy is such a team builder. She builds trust, mitigates conflict, and increases collaboration amongst her staff. Without this work, will not be completed effectively. Being the Secretary of Finance is not an easy job. There are a lot of pressure and so many constructive criticism, but with Tracy's positive energy, nothing stops her. She continues the work and fulfills her mission. And with these characteristics, I can see the department flourishing into where it needs to be. Chairwoman, Pro Tem Chair Manglonia, Chairwoman Babauta, and honorable members of this committee, I urge you to confirm Tracy as the next Secretary of Finance. Thank you, Sizos Maasi and Giliso.
Thank you, Mrs. Camacho. Floor is still open.
Buenos dias, half a day, and good afternoon to everyone. My name is Edwin P. Audon, and I am the mayor of Tiana Nagiguan. I'm here to testify in full support of Ms. Tracy B. Norita to serve as the Secretary of the Department of Finance. Mrs. Norita has an impressive professional background and possesses the necessary qualification and experience to excel in this position. Mrs. Norita is a graduate of Washington State University with a bachelor's degree in business administration, majoring in management and operations. Her education and professional background in finance and management demonstrates her proficiency and ability to lead the department with competence. Mrs. Norita has worked with the cinema government since 2014, beginning as a technical financial analyst under the Office of Management and Budget. She has served as a foreclosure specialist from 2013 to 2014 and as a legal assistant from 2007 to 2008. Her exclusive experience in different positions within the government have provided her with a valuable insight into the operation of government agencies. Additionally, this experience has equipped her with the necessary skills and expertise to deal with all aspects of financial management, which is critical responsibility of Secretary of Department of Finance. Ms. Narita has served as the Director of the Division of Revenue and Taxation under the Department of Finance since 2019, where she has demonstrated exceptional leadership and fiscal responsibility. Moreover, her involvement in the governor's single audit committee as the single audit coordinator demonstrates her ability to manage complex audits and maintain compliance with federal regulations. In her role as the Secretary of Finance, Acting Secretary of Finance, Ms. Norita experience, qualification, and background will not only help her, but also the department as a whole, as well as the people of the cinema. Her track record of success in leadership and financial management will guarantee that the Department of Finance continues to operate effectively and efficiently. Her background holding various government positions has given her a distinct viewpoint that will aid her in making decisions that are advantageous to to the people of the cinema. With that said, I strongly believe that Ms. Tracy Binorida is a highly qualified and experienced candidate who would be an excellent fit for the position of Secretary of the Department of Finance. Her diverse background, management experience, and proven track record of leadership make her an ideal candidate for the role. In closing, I would like to thank you for giving me the opportunity to state my full support for the appointment of Ms. Tracy Binorida, and I ask that this body please confirm her. Thank you again, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Mayor Adon.
Hafa to Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Gary Sword of KKMP Radio. They said that you meet the greatest people during a catastrophe. And this is where I met Tracy. I don't know her that well. I've never met her before the pandemic, but during the pandemic, she was a light of hope for a lot of our people because nobody was working. People were on furlough. People were laid off. They needed money to feed their families. And she was always on point, making sure that our child tax credit was going out to the right people. And if anybody had a problem with their tax filing, she would personally take it on. When people called the radio, I'd report it to Tracy. Tracy, so and so needs help. These are our elders and those that are homebound, and they cannot get all of their tax papers through. And it's always taken care of. I never hear back from them again. Then I know that Tracy has done her job. Not only doing that, but during the stimulus, during the card. I mean, always the information was there. And Tracy, when Tracy was on our shows on the radio, would see our Facebook go up to 800 people watching at one time. Because when she explained something, people understood. And she didn't rush it like, oh, I'm too busy to do this, I'm too busy. No, she took her time, made sure that the people understood what they were getting and how to get it. And I feel this is something that it's not learned, it's something that you grew up with. And to be part of a community, to be part of a family, to be an island girl, it's something very, very special. And you can take the girl out of the island, but you can't take the island out of the girl. And that's Tracy. I strongly urge the committee, the Senate, to act on her nomination and confirm her as our next Secretary of Finance. I know that our community will greatly benefit from her talents, just as they benefited during COVID-19 and subsequent programs that were going on. I strongly urge her, as you've heard other people say, that she did the online filing for the taxes, which is really a great thing, and gas is expensive, so that was good. The thing that I admire most about Tracy is that during the pandemic, when she was helping others, she was raising her young family and bought a house at the same time, building her house and repairing her house at the same time during the pandemic, and the same time helping other people. So she can multitask. You say multitasking, this is the woman for the job. And I always say, if you have a tough job to do, hire a woman, because she can do it. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Sword. Floor is still open.
Hi, good afternoon. Holiday Pro Tem Chair and Madam Chair and Member. My name is Robert Regis. I'm here today in support of the confirmation of Ms. Tracy B. Narita as Secretary of Finance. Ms. Narita, in her capacity as acting, has worked with customs and biosecurity and has exhibited her commitment to support our organization's goals and objectives, including our efforts to assess and collect import duty, and most especially our duties to protect and safeguard the borders from the infiltration of illicit narcotics and contraband. Ms. Narita is no stranger to the Department of Finance. Her prior role in the Department of Finance is the Director of Revenue Tax. As the Director of Revenue Tax, she has ensured that taxes are collected and tax refunds were dispersed accordingly. I am sure that all the staff behind me, management of the divisions under the Department of Finance, will attest to Directors Narita's willingness, support, and vision to grow and develop the division for the future of the department and the government. I am confident that Ms. Narita is knowledgeable, familiar with the functions, and has good morals and high ethical values. Therefore, I believe Director Narita is well suited and should be appointed as the next Secretary of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Regis. Anyone else?
Hafide, Tiro, Casalele Menko. Good afternoon, honorable members of this committee. My name is Sheila Jack Babauta, and I'm here in my personal capacity. As a former legislator in the 21st CNMI legislature, Tracy and I worked on two bills together that became public law. Public Law 21-36 and Public Law 21-32. 2136 allowed and authorized the Department of Finance more authority over business licenses. And Public Law 21-32 authorized the governor to offset judgment liabilities. Although Tracy and I have a personal relationship, we were able to work professionally together. And although we have a big family in the CNMI, I'm confident that she will be able to take this role seriously and perform the same way. I first met Tracy Babauta Narita the day she was born. I am her older sister, and as children growing up together and watching her journey and her growth as a leader has been nothing short of amazing, and I'm so proud of her. Since we were young girls, she was always the one with the time management skills. She was the one who displayed so much kindness and generosity and forgiveness in our family settings and in our friendship settings. Tracy has values of respect, kindness, humility, integrity, and service. She not only has the experience to lead this department with 6 years at the Office of Management and Budget, 4 years at the Division of Tax and Rev, serving as the youngest director in a position that was vacant for so long, and now as acting secretary. She is not only educated with her bachelor's degree and currently seeking higher education with her master's in accounting. She also understands the importance of leadership development and personal growth. She understands that how you lead others must start with self. And as a witness to her growth, she is committed to that. And so I am confident that that is something she will promote and emphasize in the department, training and personal development. Tracy is a great person who understands the importance of relationships. And throughout the numerous professional activities and programs that she has attended, she has built and strengthened relationships with leaders in the Marianas, throughout the Pacific, in the federal government, and in the world. And at this time, it's really important that someone in this leadership position has relationships, good, working, strong relationships with other leaders to leverage resources. We all know that this is not an easy time to accept the position as Secretary of Finance. I have been approached many times where community members share their admiration for Tracy taking on this role. She's competent, she's prepared, and she's enthusiastic about taking this challenge on. And I think that is what's most important. Her attitude from the beginning has been very positive. And that is what our community needs to see modeled during difficult times in our economy. And so I'm here to support the nomination of the Acting Secretary of Finance, Tracy Babauta Narita. I highly encourage this committee to support her nomination, and I trust and have the utmost confidence that she will do what's best for the CNMI, what's best for her family, what's best for all of us here in our communities. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you, former Congresswoman Babauta. Anyone else? All right, at this time, the public comment portion of the agenda is closed. And before we move forward with the nominee's statement, may I please ask Ms. Narita to rise while our LA administers the oath.
Ms. Tracy B. Narita, you do solemnly swear under the penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall provide in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Acting Secretary, if you have any statement you'd like to give, now would be the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Pro Tem Chair. Good afternoon, half a day. Kasalelia Menko, to honorable Senate members of this committee, Senator Mendiola, Senator Babauta, and Senator Manglonia. Thank you for this opportunity to give my personal testimony. First, I am humbled and grateful to our Lord, who has designed my journey and career that has prepared me to accept the call and nomination of our Honorable Governor Palacios and Honorable Lieutenant Governor Apatang. I'm honored to have been given this tremendous responsibility and task to be the Secretary of Finance, if confirmed by this body. I'd like to acknowledge my family in the gallery, my husband Cody, my parents Diego and Dolorina Babauta, my in-laws Clyde Norita, Vicky Villagomez, John and Marianne Mendiola, my siblings, and all my friends and supporters that have shown up today to be present and to speak on my behalf and submit written testimony. I am grateful for each and every one of you who have impacted my life in one way or another that has allowed me to be here today. I love you all. Senate committee members, again, my name is Tracy Babauta Narita, and I am a daughter of the Sinamay, born and raised here on Saipan. I moved back home with my family after completing my college education in 2014. Finance is my passion, mainly because it can be a creative space to help design the implementation of community programs and projects. My experience in government finance since 2014 has been a wonderful one. Starting out at the Office of Management and Budget, and then moving over to the Division of Revenue and Taxation, working alongside positive, hardworking, competent, and committed individuals. The Department of Finance staff, I believe, are silent heroes. These are the people who work in the background, who enter tax returns, process payroll, enter invoices, print checks, clear cargo, issue passports, receives and processes all federal funding, and processes all government purchases and property, and those that work tirelessly to ensure our systems are functional and secure. Finance is the central processing plant of this government and is not acknowledged enough as a core, essential, and critical component to government operations. I am proud to have been their colleague for the past 4 years and honored to be nominated and, if confirmed, their leader. In my recent capacity as Acting Secretary of Finance, I've had to practice priority management to ensure that time was given to the most critical financial matters, trying to accommodate as many people from all sectors of our community. And in that short time, I began to envision the goals for finance. Upon confirmation, my 4-year strategic plan will include restoring the credibility and integrity of our processes. We are the gatekeepers of CNMI funds and hold the highest responsibility to ensure those funds are accounted for and properly managed. As the saying goes, the tone is set at the top, and a culture of integrity and trust must be rebuilt. I envision a department that is transparent, being able to produce financial reports in a timely manner so that the information is useful and meaningful. Prioritizing the completion of the CNMI single audit on time and make progress with resolving findings and implementation of corrective action plans. I will focus on building capacity for finance personnel. Our work starts with our people, and they need the support. Training has been the #1 request from many of my staff. I will be working closely with each division director to develop a training plan that addresses key functions within their divisions to ensure capacity building, but also continuity and efficiency. Staff engagement is not addressed enough, and I plan to make that part of the foundation of the department. Lastly, I will work hard to guide this administration in making sound financial decisions through controlled spending, increased tax enforcement, and full utilization of and compliance with federal financial assistance. The Department of Finance and its sister offices in Tinian and Rhoda continue to be challenged with adequate staffing levels to meet the increase in work volume, especially with the influx of hundreds of millions of dollars in federal funding. And cross-training remains to be difficult due to highly specialized and technical skills required. We are challenged with adequate facilities and space to house staff and maintaining adequate inventory of supplies to support our operations. Lastly, a critical challenge is the government-wide IT modernization and alignment. Technology comes at a cost, and we must ensure continued functionality and cybersecurity is maintained. Although the Department of Finance isn't immune to the challenges of a constricting government, we do remain hopeful for the positive changes to come. We are working closely with our federal partners to improve our current processes and internal controls. We look forward to the completion of the procurement office renovation through funding from CIP. The relocation of the passport office and part of Treasury is underway to our newly renovated building at the end of the month, which will reduce rental costs. Additionally, we are in the design phase of the new finance building known as the Economic Resiliency Center, and construction is targeted for completion in 2025. The DRT tax system, known as the RMIS, is also targeted to go live in January of 2024. And lastly, targeted completion for the FY21 and FY22 single audit is scheduled for March 2024. The department has a lot of work ahead, and I stand ready to work alongside our staff to get the job done so that our CNMI can benefit from an efficiently run, highly skilled, and professional finance department. Again, I thank you for this opportunity to stand before you as you consider my nomination, and I look forward to your confirmation. With that, I yield to this committee, and I welcome any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Secretary Narita. At this time, I will open the floor to the members for any questions they may have. And I recognize Chair Selena.
Welcome. First, for the record, Vice Chair Manglonia, I want to state for the record that we also received letters of support for the nominee from Melissa Mendiola, Mr. Rufin S. Enos, Ms. Jodina Attal, and Ms. Marian Aldon Pierce, all in support of the nominee. And one of the other things I wanted to take care of, your statement of financial interest was missing a page, particularly Schedule G and Schedule H, and they deal with financial interest not in real estate and financial interest in real estate. It's not clear at this time whether it was inadvertent, so if you could provide the committee with that page. Thank you. Let's start off. What are your thoughts on the BOOST program?
What a great question. Thank you, Senator Babauta. My initial thoughts on the BOOST program was that it was intended to help the business community. And I sympathize with those honest small businesses that did apply for assistance. And unfortunately, many of them didn't receive assistance. And the program was tarnished by the mismanagement of the program. And so with that said, I know that the program is over and we are looking at recoupment of funds.
Okay.
And overall, it could have been a great program. It was just unfortunate the way that it was handled. And I hope that those businesses that did receive aid use it to the best of their ability to help the CNMI recover.
So there are plans to recover the funds from
Yes.
individuals who established businesses right before the deadline and were not, in fact, impacted by the pandemic. I think the public, we get a lot of calls on that, what's happening with the Boost investigation. We're not going to open it. But I think the public needs to hear from those in positions to update them as to, especially the ones that were not awarded any Boost awards for the recoupment. That's one of the biggest concerns we get now. Is the legislature going to recoup those funds? We don't have the authority to do so. So I'm glad you stated that. We also get a lot of calls from retirees, and they're very, very concerned about their 25%. Is the administration, or does the administration have any plans to suspend the 25% during this fiscal year? Because I know that that is a serious consideration in the budget meetings.
Thank you for that question regarding the 25% and our retirees. And what I can say is that this administration is committed to providing that funding. I know that it will take a lot of collaboration between the administration and the legislature to ensure that that commitment is fulfilled. And at this point, we are fully aligned together to provide that to the retirees. We did include it in our revised budget proposal. And our fiscal response team is working hard to ensure that we get the reimbursements, the FEMA reimbursements that were assured to cover the 25%. And so I do want to reassure the retirees that we are working hard to fulfill that commitment.
Is there a contingency plan if that doesn't materialize?
As far as a contingency plan, I believe we will get to it at that point. But right now, really the urgency is to expedite those reimbursements of the millions so that that funding can be used and secured for our retirees.
Do we know how much we're anticipating from FEMA reimbursements?
As of our last fiscal response meeting, the Public Assistance Office did share that we are looking forward to at least 58 million that has been provided to FEMA for review and approval.
Okay, thank you. The governor has announced cost savings plans and has implemented, in fact, a reduction of 10% or 8 hours. Do you foresee this happening in the next fiscal year as well?
I can't say to be sure because my approach is to get as much data as we can before making a plan. And right now, the revenue projections were just made for the current fiscal year. And I have advised the administration that we should use the most up-to-date data before we can project forward for FY24. And so that will be a huge consideration because we want to lessen the suffering of our employees. However, it will depend on the revenue projections to come.
Okay, thank you. Given the long lines at and wait times at Revenue and Tax, including Treasury, what are your plans to improve services and streamline them to make it more efficient?
my plan for streamlining and increasing efficiency has always pivoted towards technology. And so, speaking from experience, as you've heard at the Division of Revenue and Tax, the pandemic actually provided us an opportunity to really walk the talk, because we had to minimize, the amount of people that were in line. And so we moved forward with our project to have online filing, and that proved to be something that the taxpayers love and enjoy. And as far as encouraging taxpayers to pay their taxes, I think technology has really aided us in doing that. And so that is not limited, that vision is not limited to revenue and tax. That is something that we should apply to all our divisions. And as you all know, we have a new financial management system that has the potential to really streamline a lot of workflows, but we are in the process. We are still in the process of implementation, but that is the vision, is to use technology.
I'm glad you mentioned the Munis. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes,
Munis system, there's many complaints. I'm sure you've heard.
I'm sure.
Part of it is the lack of training for employees and also those who have approving authority. Do you plan to conduct more intensive and
We definitely do.
I think the departments are screaming for that at this point.
Yes, I agree, and their concerns are valid. What I can tell you is that when Munis was purchased, the implementation plan was set for at least 4 years, 4 to 5 years, to conduct a full implementation process. However, at the decision of the prior leadership, that implementation plan was shortened to 13 months. I can't say the reason or the decision behind that because I was not part of it, but I do know now that we see the impacts and the implications of a rushed implementation. And so that's why I say the concerns and the complaints are valid, and it should have been something that was expected. But now that I am in the acting capacity, my first priority for Munis was to pull back the resources that left the central government and pull back the resources from the vendor, Tyler Technologies, to come back and conduct a reset of some sort to ensure that our Munis system, our financial system, was fully functioning. And we are currently in that state. We had a changeover of project managers from Tyler. So we have new people on the ground. We are in the assessment phase. And I'm very hopeful that the concerns that have been brought up by all agencies and vendors alike will be addressed.
Thank you. Now we will go into, I will ask about the taxation. For many years, the collection of taxes has been so laxed, and that is part of our, just a small part maybe, I don't know how much our outstanding tax, by the way, how much outstanding tax are collectibles approximately?
We have approximately almost 100 million.
And as I was mentioning earlier, collection of taxes has been so lax despite revenue and tax having enforcement positions filled. What are your plans to aggressively collect the over $100 million of taxes that are due to the government?
Thank you for that question, Senator Babauta. In my time as Rev and Tax Director, I came to realize that there is a misunderstanding of the term tax enforcement. We do have an enforcement branch that focuses on the business license and cash receipts law. However, in tax administration, enforcement really means the compliance section, the audit section, and the collections section. All of them encompass tax enforcement. And so to give you an idea of the challenges that we have, when I came into the office, we had maybe 4 collection officers and less than 5 auditors. And the outstanding tax receivable is a huge daunting task. And like I mentioned in my statement, their number one request was for training. And because we implement the tax code, the Internal Revenue Service tax code, the type of training is very specialized. It's not available here on island. And so my goal was to work with the IRS to ensure that we do get that training done, the training resources available. Unfortunately, the pandemic took over and all those training plans were placed on hold. But now that the pandemic is tapering off, the IRS has informed us of their plans to take that up again and continue the training. So again, we are challenged with adequate staffing and training, and that is not a secret, and our federal partners are ready to work with us.
Thank you. I yield, Vice Chair, for now.
Thank you, Chair Babalta. I recognize Senator Mendiola.
Thank you, Ms. Narita, Acting Secretary. So I think the chair kind of just covered everything. But really, first of all, I just wanted to commend you because probably one of the youngest secretary, right? And given the state of the CNMI and accepting this position, being that we're in so much challenges, is commendable, and I guess it's an addition to your, skill set that you can be proud of. I just want to go into just really plans, right? More of a general, and you mentioned a lot of them. I wanted to cover down on really, given all the challenges that we face with the pandemic, what additional measures have you planned on implementing just to help the finance? And I understand you were talking about going online, right? But other measures that can safeguard staff and interaction, because probably one of the most interactive agency is yourself, given that you collect taxes. People come in and meet your agency. And I'm just interested to know if you have any plans on trying to ensure that your staff are safe and are safe. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that question, Senator Mendiola. In regards to the plans to improve and to help the staff, again, engagement is really top priority. And I say that because I would not know where to start if I did not ask first the employees. And every single time I ask, it's always training, it's always more staffing. And so in terms of measures, key performance indicators or KPIs or performance measures is not something that's new to the Department of Finance. This is something that we have been working with the Department of Interior. OIA has been really working closely with us to kind of track our work and our progress. And so in my meeting with the directors, I always try to emphasize the importance of tracking and tracking meaningful measures, something that will flag you, right? That something needs to be fixed, or if we're doing a great job. And so that is definitely something that we have been planning on, that we've been developing. And so it's also something that is not set in stone, that could be changed. And I just look forward to working with the staff to make sure that we are tracking the right things and that they can feel the benefits of us improving our work.
Thank you. I asked that question because I'm going to be really frank. Your husband actually played a vital role in the 5-year plan that we drafted for the Department of Fire, and we were very successful with that. And I think it's commendable to note that in these instances. And I also talked about these issues with the pandemic, because one of the biggest challenges that we face is that when the pandemic hit, nobody wanted to work. So, there's a lot of people that were frightened and absolutely understood because of, the unknown, the fear of unknown. And I guess it's just important for us as leaders not to just create plans and just try and, I guess, use this as a lesson learned coming in the years to come. Munis, I wanted to ask about Munis. As you mentioned earlier, it's very challenging. It was challenging for myself, and I think many leaders, it was challenging. And I think the biggest, absolutely, training, the lack of understanding of the way the system worked. But one of the biggest problem that I had is just when we submit for processing, one of the challenges just, it's really at the, it's the approval process is right at the palm of your hands with your phone, but then again, it just sits there. So is there any mechanism with it to just kind of prompt that or probe that or push that so that vital government programs don't wait for these approval?
Thank you for that question regarding Munis. I believe that the workflow in Munis was designed, again, in a rushed implementation. And that is something that we are reviewing again, whether all approvers in the workflow process are necessary. In addition to that, I found that we still need to do some kind of validation. And in your experience with Munis, you probably noticed there's an attachment feature now. And that is something that is new to a lot of departments. And it's also new to the finance staff as well. And so there's a learning curve. I understand that. But we also have to be mindful of our duty to have due diligence and make sure that the attachments are aligned with the actual request that was inputted. And so we do continue to work closely with the agencies and help train them more like on the go on how to submit properly so that we can avoid any delays. And so it's been a learning curve for everybody. And I'm hoping that with this review of the process and of the system itself, that we can regain some of the efficiencies that we were anticipating. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I mentioned about Munis just because it was as we stated problematic, and for me it's not like managers or directors or supervisors or what have you just sit on their chair waiting to approve this, and a lot of times programs within the agency sit just because approving is a process, or like you said earlier, where sometimes we have to look at whether all those people in the approving authority are required or necessary. Just because if I'm the expenditure authority for the department, I don't see why we have like several others approving when we're held accountable to our approving authority. So that's some of the reasons why I mentioned about Munis. I'm gonna move into travel card. Not that I don't see any travels in the near future, just because we're challenged at the moment. But I'm just interested to know about your thoughts on the travel card.
My immediate thoughts on the travel card was that I was actually very excited about that feature, because on the face of it, it does provide flexibility for the traveler. And nowadays, when you book your travel accommodations, most of it is done online. You purchase your ticket online, you book your hotel online. So it was a very exciting improvement to our government procedures. However, technology comes at a cost, and the cost fell on the Department of Finance to reconcile all travel claims. And so, to give you an idea, for every travel card that is used under the Department of Finance, every single transaction, every single swipe, I would have to approve that. And that was not known at the time of implementation, that this was the kind of workload it would produce. And so that's one of the setbacks that we realized that came from the travel card. In addition to that, there is a reconciliation process that the staff have shared their concerns about, that it is 10 times more work than the paper process. And so there's mixed feedback there. But I do hope that when we do improve the system, we could consider going back to using the travel card for its intended purposes to increase efficiency and provide flexibility. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I mentioned that again because I am paying for my travel. I practically paid for all my travel just because I got penalized. Again, it's my fault. I'm not putting it at anybody, but I'm just trying to understand the process and try to make sure that in the future, everybody understands the way the process works. I can give you an example where you get travel and you get the travel card, and then you go to the States. And I had a staff where he was in the States, and his travel or his card got denied, so he literally had to pay out of pocket. And then because the time difference, it wasn't like we can just call the phone out there and just call home to just kind of add some money to the card. So it was a lot of challenges, and you're right. In your opening, you talked about communication, and I think it's just trying to communicate a lot of this issues so that we can find remedies and solution to it, and make sure that staff don't suffer these consequences especially when they're out there in the States and there's no family member out there. So thank you for your response. I yield for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Mandola. Good afternoon again, Acting Secretary, and welcome to everyone present here today. Before I get into the questions that I prepared, I just want to kind of ask follow-up questions based on your responses to the earlier questions. Senator or Chair Babauta mentioned long lines and stuff like that. Where are we in the Munis process in terms of coming up with this one-stop shop to make payments and to see where documents are in the process instead of having to go to each agency? I know that was one of the plans of then Secretary Athalek, but is that something that you plan to continue to try to push for, Secretary?
Thank you, Senator Maglonia, for that question. I believe you are referring to the EnerGov module under our Tyler system. And so Munis is a separate financials. EnerGov is a permitting module. And I was involved in the implementation or the first wave of implementation of EnerGov with the goal of having a one-stop shop for both business license and all other permitting. And we did encounter some issues with the efficiency of using that module to match our statute and how we are able to issue a business license. So we unfortunately had to pull out of EnerGov. However, I do know that or from what I hear from the other agencies, is that they do like the EnerGov module. And so having a one-stop shop is still on the table. It's still possible. We are waiting for the full implementation of the online process and the online payments. It's just a matter of configuration right now that we are waiting on the Tyler team to provide us. So I'm glad that that portion of the process is still going forward and that we're getting good feedback from the permitting agencies. But like I said, business license was not able to be part of that module because we actually had an alternative plan, which is to embed the business license process into the development of our tax system, which also would allow online submission and issuance of the business license. So even though they are not the same module, it would still allow online processing. So we still look forward to that, and that's part of modernizing our technology for the Department of Finance.
Thank you. And speaking of business license, there has been several complaints that we received in terms of the processing period. And so we've noticed from the boost period how these licenses can come out in just the same day or even the next day. But yet, now that that's over with, we're back at this waiting period for business license. And so, in trying to promote the ease of applying for business to investors, how is that something that you, if confirmed for secretary, can change and kind of build that into this whole one-stop shop, but then also just making the process simpler and easier?
Thank you for that question. In regards to the business license processes during the Boost program or application period, it actually was a major factor for us to pull out of the EnerGov module, only because we went live with EnerGov for business license at the same time that the Boost deadline was extended, and there was an influx of a lot of new businesses trying to get their business license. And so to give you an idea of the inefficiency for our processes using EnerGov, using our current legacy system requires maybe 10 to 20 minutes, right, to issue a business license, I'll say. When we went live, it took almost 2 to 3 hours for one license. And that was because of the design of the system was just not made for our processes. And that was a significant factor for me to decide to pull out of that program, because we were not able to assist the business community in the time frame that we were given by the extension. And so we had to revert back to our legacy system so that we could get out more business licenses. So that's one thing. The second thing that you mentioned is, now that the Boost is over, what is probably causing the delay, again, goes back to adequate staffing. Our business license office is run by two amazing ladies, and one of them is the manager. And so they handle all business license applications and issuances. That we had to come up with a schedule that would allow them to step away from the window, actually process the license, and then have certain days for pickup. And it really was to accommodate the shortage of staffing. I did have to pull on the enforcement branch, and thank goodness for their help, and which all started during the Boost application period, to help these ladies start issuing out more licenses. So the volume just went, really high. And now because of that, we were able to cross-train immediately with other staff to assist. And their assistance has actually prolonged, because we still want to catch up with the delay that the Boost issuance and the go live of EnerGov had caused for the business license office. So I do believe once we catch up, the normal operation of business license is no more than 3 days. In our new regulation, we had inserted what was called an expedited fee, because we know there's many businesses that want their license the same day. However, when you have only 2 staff processing all these applications, that's where prioritization comes in. And so with an expedited fee, it allows them to prioritize who should get processed first. And that's just what we had to do. So going forward, I don't anticipate any delay. However, that's yet to be seen if we have any other program that would increase their volume.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. Earlier you mentioned there's around 100 million in uncollected taxes. Has Rev and Tax looked at other ways in which we can try to get those uncollected taxes, as opposed to, say, well, I know the former late Rev Blanco tried to get the tax amnesty bill through. I know that's not popular with the several employees at Department of Finance, but how can we try to make it easier and more accommodating to those that, oh, I know it's tax, it's revenue is already realized, but if they're not paying their taxes, but how do we make it easier? I know one instance where someone was called and said, oh, you have to pay, can you at least pay 20% of what's due? And so even the 20% may be difficult, but how can we try to make that easier so that we collect $100 versus zero? You know what I mean? Is that something that would need to change in regulation or statute?
Thank you for that question, Senator Manglonia. So our current tax collection procedures already include the option for taxpayers to enter into an installment plan that is available to them. They do have to apply for it to prove their hardship. There's other offers in compromise that they could enter into if they had maybe a large amount to settle and come into a more specialized or specific payment plan. And so that option is already there. You mentioned the tax amnesty program that does require legislation. And we did hear from the business community about that. And there are some people that don't support it because it actually disincentivizes those that are compliant. And so there's a lot of different angles to look at that. We would definitely go back and review any tax amnesty legislation should it be provided to our office. And Division of Rev and Tax really would just be enforcing the law should it pass. And so we can work closely on that if you'd like to move forward with that.
Okay, thank you. But I don't know. Has Rev and Tax written off any of these uncollected tax? I don't know, within the 5 years, and how much has been written off?
We don't write off any taxes that are collectible. We want to collect as much as we can. However, there is a statute of limitations on uncollectible taxes. And so, like I said, it goes back to the inadequate staffing that we have. If you have only 4 people working on this $100 million receivable, it is bound to happen that there will be lapses because of the statute. And so the best way to approach it really would be to provide staffing and training to address the big problem.
Has your concern in regards to staffing ever been brought up to the previous Secretary of Finance? Because, you're part of the whole budget proposal process. And so I would assume that these requests would be included and shown that, there's a strong need for these auditors and enforcers, but yet we don't really see it in prior submission of the budget. And so, was this something that has been shared with former
Yes,
secretaries?
it has definitely been shared. Our need has been shared. And we did try to recruit. And so that is also another challenge, is recruiting talented individuals with the required or preferred background so that they can immediately get to work. It has been a challenge. However, we did hire 2 new auditors that came on board and have been doing just a phenomenal job. And so, like the Senate has shared previously, we did collect over 24 million, or we did identify 24 million in unreported revenue because of the work of these the new auditors,
Okay.
alongside the auditors that have been there. But that just proves that when you do have skilled and capable people come on board to assist those that have been working hard, we see some results. But it is a challenge to recruit with the limitations of the civil service salary scale. And so the government continues to be challenged with competitiveness. Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. Next, I want to focus on more autonomy for the municipalities as well as the legislature. I know it also has been in discussions where the legislature should have its own finance department where we process our own, we go through our own procurement procedures as well as travel. And then I also know that the challenges with Rhoda and Tinian include just despite the mayor being the sole authority over these islands, the executive or the directives coming from the agencies here in Saipan are kind of putting these offices at a bind. And so issues like um, personnel papers being lost in routing and just the duplicative efforts of Road and Tinian's procurement office with the main procurement office here. And so how is it or why or how can we better that process in trying to provide more independence towards the municipalities and the branches while still maintaining your oversight authority over the funds that are they're meant for these municipalities or branches.
Thank you for that question, Senator Manglonia. I believe currently the law provides for the Secretary of Finance to delegate the authority of financial administration to the resident department heads. And so those offices are established already. However, we do have to work within the confines of the law. So if there was a place to start, that would be it. However, with the way we operate currently, I know that all the processes that they have in place are the processes that we have in place here in Saipan, and that they have the capability to implement those independently. However, I do know that our sister offices continue to struggle with the same challenges that we do, and it's actually on a larger scale because they are so small. And so they have been cross-training and to the best of their ability. However, I do notice that the Saipan offices, because we have more personnel here, we do offer more assistance when needed. So to answer your question, I know that it is possible for them to be independent. We might have to look at the law again on how, if you want more autonomy, and we do stand ready to support them should it go in that direction. But right now, we really do rely on each other. And you'll see that in this upcoming tax season, that we do provide a lot of assistance to the municipalities in the implementation of our finances. So.
Thank you. And the reason I bring that up is because every budget hearing, there's always that challenge of we're waiting for Saipan to approve, and even though there's a procurement officer on Rhoda, it goes to Saipan procurement, and so I hope that that's something that could really be looked at to try to make the process more run smoother, but also to kind of lessen the workload on the main office here and also give the opportunity to the municipal employees to actually exercise their duties, which also brings me into my next issue with Passport. I know Passport has, the last time I've communicated with them, there's only a few number of, I don't know, certified or qualified individuals that can approve applications or assist with. And Rhoda and Tinian would have to wait months at a time just to meet with someone from the Passport office. Is there something that you can do to kind of provide more support, whether it's through the federal agency in certifying additional employees that could, that could certify these applications?
Yeah, definitely. It's a matter of following, again, the certification and the requirements of a U.S. passport. And so I have no objections to cross-training and cross-certifying other individuals in the municipality so that the work can continue. I do know that we require 2 of the certified employees to be there in person when issuing passports, and that might be a delay for the municipality. So we can definitely look at that and revisit how we can certify your own employees and then cross-train them to do that as well. So I would not have an objection to that.
Okay, and thank you for that. In preparing for 2024, as agents, have you kind of directed the agencies to start looking at a 64-hour work week, or we're going to try to maintain that 72-hour work week pay period?
I believe the Office of Management and Budget has already begun conducting meetings with the agencies in preparation of the budget. And what was advised was to follow your current hours for personnel, and that it will be adjusted when the final projection is provided. And so that we can look at what a fully functioning office would look like. And then should there be adjustments, then it would be made from OMB. So we are hopeful that we remain on track with our revenue projections, and that it will be adjusted at a later time if needed.
Thank you. And as you know, the House acted on the governor's proposal, and so it now sits in my committee. Based on your new projection for the next 6 months of the fiscal year, are you confident that the government is solvent and will be able to pay the major debts? The 75%, the bond payments. Are you confident that those will be satisfied
I am
as they
more.
become due?
Oh, thank you. I am more hopeful because that's how I would like to remain as we monitor the revenues. Again, we are mindful that there are some geopolitical activities that might affect our revenue projections, and that is why it is important for us to continue monitoring that. And I do hope that it stays in line and that we are able to meet our obligations, especially the big ones, such as the settlement fund and our GHLI and our payroll. And that is why we have the fiscal response team to make sure that we stay on task and to really just monitor the revenues moving forward. So as far as confidence, I am confident in our financial analysis of the prior collection trends. However, we have to, when you look at projections, you're looking forward. And so we have to be mindful of all the other things that are happening that might impact that.
Do you believe that we would need to have a credit line revolving fund to enhance the way we're able to, pay vendors or pay for contracts and stuff like that?
My personal thought on that is that it wouldn't hurt, especially because we have a volatile economy and that there are things happening in the region that might affect tourism, in a short time frame, and that it would be sort of a safety net for the CNMI should we need it. However, I have expressed that we should focus more on the work that needs to be done to bring in the revenues that we need, such as the FEMA reimbursements, because that's money already on the table, and that's what we should focus on. However, having a line of credit doesn't hurt.
Thank you. I know recent news have mentioned that the Asiana is going to come back with 4 additional flights a week. Have you worked with MVA to kind of do a projection as to what that would look like in terms of revenue? Is that too premature, or is that something that has already been in discussion?
At this point, it is premature. It just came out, and so I just learned of it. However, I am open to working with MVA. We do rely on our revenue data that is submitted through tax forms, and so we have that data that we need for our revenue projections. But if there's other economic factors that we can plug in, then I'm definitely open to working with MVA on that.
Okay, thank you. And my last question for now is, as the next Secretary of Finance, what would you say would be your top 2 priorities within the first year? I know, there's so many divisions under the department, but what would be at least your 2 biggest focus in trying to get this economy back to where it's at, or even just to try to ensure that revenues are being collected, so on and so forth.
Thanks for that question, Senator Manglonia. As far as the plans for the Department of Finance, as I mentioned earlier, going back to basics really is what we need to do to build integrity and trust in our financial processes and build transparency. And so in order to do that, we really have to revisit the systems that are in place, both in procedure and in our technology, our financial system. And so we're already doing that. And there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but we are doing it already. And so I look forward to the outcome of that. Secondly, would be to build capacity, because our staff has been working at 100% for many years now with no breaks, because we know that we are one of the economic drivers of the CNMI. We implement and we push out funding from the federal government. And so really it's the staff, the people, the systems, that would be my priority in order to get all this funding out, right? And all the construction activities to get going. It really relies on finance to get the money in and out into the community. So that would be our priority.
Thank you for that answer. And so, members, as you may know, as a member of the fiscal response team, I've worked with Acting Secretary and S.A. Villagomez, as well as their team. And I've been jotting notes as we go to these meetings to try to see how well Acting Secretary has responded to some of the inquiries, as well as the situation we're in. And so I just had to bring up some of these questions because they were asked by our constituents, but also try to get to know you on a level outside the fiscal response team, because we will be working with each other closely within the next 2 years as the fiscal affairs chair. And so if and when you get confirmed, I look forward to continuing the dialogue and communication as what's been this theme here. And so I hope to continue to get that quick response to a lot of the requests. I've seen, even being CC'd on emails, I've seen the responses coming out from any divisions within your department. And so thank you for your quick responses to any inquiries by the members. And at this time, I'll hand the floor back to the members for any closing questions. Recognize Senator Mendiola.
Just 2 more questions for me. I really dislike talking about booths. It's just one of those really controversial statement. But you were mentioning about recruitment, so I just want to get some clarity. And when you say recruitment, is that the entirety, or is there a criteria that's designed to be? And the reason why I'm asking is because I'm sure that there are businesses out there that have already spent based on their business plan, proposal, and all that. And for some ease of mind, I'm just kind of curious on what's the intent when we talk about recruitment or recoupment of the funds. recoupment. Yeah. So
In terms of recoupment, thank you, Senator Mendiola. In terms of recoupment for the Boost program, initially when I came in as acting secretary, we had reached out to the Bank of Saipan to seize any more issuances of Boost funding. And so they did cancel some awards that were made and returned that back to the CNMI. In terms of what can be done for those that already received the funding, we will rely on the AG's office to pursue those funds because now it has become a legal matter, and that's where we are at today. So I would lean on the AG for that update.
thank you for that. Another question that I have is that we were talking about like roughly $58 million in reimbursement from FEMA. During one of the discussion, I think we were anticipating over 100, roughly about 102 million of total reimbursement. My question is, given that knowledge, is there any, down the line, is there any chance that we will go back and revisit, the impact of our government in entirely, in its entirety?
I can share with you what I do know from my short and recent time spent with the Public Assistance Office is that the reimbursement process comes in stages. And so the 58 million really represents projects that have been submitted to FEMA for approval. And from there, we can start with the drawdown process of receiving those funds. However, the 100 million that you're referring to may be the federal obligation that remains out there for us to complete projects. So as we complete and as we build in and finish up those construction activities, whatever that may be, that we may receive up to 100 million, but we're just not at that stage yet. And so there's a lot involved in the reimbursement process. So I'm sure that this is not the end of it for the 58 million and that we would go after all that has been obligated for the CNMI.
Thank you for that. Last one. We're realizing 11% of increase in the last quarter or 2 quarters. I guess just a general question, just projection, right? Maybe more for management and budget, but do you anticipate more collection or an increase of our economy in the next quarters, 2 quarters?
So our revenue projection was based off our actual collection trends of the past 3 years. So we looked at fiscal year 2020, 2021, and 2022 for the same periods. And so what we were seeing was a small gradual increase over those years. And so when we took that financial analysis and compared it to the projections, we had that's where our confidence was in compared to the actual trend, and that we just wanted to be in line with what that was, and that really represented the 11% increase moving forward. Now, if more economic activity were to happen and that increases, then that's great, and then we'll get to that point and adjust at that time.
Thank you for that. I'm just asking really just so that we can shed some light, and maybe our people can have a little hope. I refuse to continuously say that the economy is really bad, and of course we see that, and it's not news to us. It's not new. I remember back in 2020 maybe or 20 when we were about to reduce the government, and we've been challenged since then. And then that pandemic hit us, and it became more challenging. We were able to get that ARPA fund to help us, and it ran its course. So I'm hopeful and I'm optimistic, and I'm hoping that we can find ways and means to actually try and stimulate our economy and get to par, and make sure that our people are not affected any further. Thank you. Are you for now, Chair?
Thank you, Senator Mendiola. I recognize Chair Babalta.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Talking about the 11% anticipated or projected increase for the rest of the fiscal year, Governor Palacios transmitted a projection of 11%. And I'm glad you said you were confident because you looked at the analysis for previous years, the previous 3 years, but I'm not as optimistic as you. I believe it's an artificial increase because of all the millions of federal dollars that have been infused into our economy. So I hope that the increase that we are projecting for the rest of the fiscal year really is the true trend. But your thoughts on that, and I know you said you've done an analysis, and of course, numbers don't lie. Do you feel that that is an artificial increase, or it's a true trend, given that we were pre-pandemic, we were not in very good shape financially, and then we had all these hundreds of millions of dollars infused. Every single household was given a stimulus more than once. So those are artificial increases, artificial income per se. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you for that question, Senator Babauta. As far as an artificial increase, it may look like that, but I'd like to state that, and just to be clear, that we are not yet at pre-pandemic levels. And that is something that has been made clear to the administration. And I understand the influx of federal aid that had come in during the pandemic. And yes, that may have been a significant driver in the economy. However, working at Rev and Tax, we did see the additional increase in the child tax, and then we are also receiving and will continue to receive the earned income tax credit, which is about $32 million moving forward every year. And so those are continued federal assistance that will follow the pandemic. And then we also did consider that during the pandemic, our tourism came to a standstill. And so the federal aid did cover that loss in revenue. However, moving forward, we see a resumption of our tourism industry, and that is what gives us hope that the revenues that are generated will come from that economic activity as well. So that is what gives us the hope, is that the resumption of the tourism industry, in addition to the continuing construction projects funded by multiple sources of federal aid, not just from FEMA, but also, from the EDA agency, which awarded over $100 million in construction activities. And so we're hopeful because we know that those things are still ongoing.
Thank you. I hope you also take into consideration the military operations in the region, because that will severely affect our revenues in terms of tourism arrivals in particular. I don't foresee any tourists coming here knowing how close the proximity of Guam is to the CNMI. So I hope that is taken into consideration in this economic analysis moving forward. I have received calls from businesses who owe taxes. I guess they're part of that 100 million outstanding taxes. But they've also raised a concern that they're reluctant to pay their tax because the government owes them. Some of these were vendors from COVID-19 operations and other, whether it's purchase orders or whatever. I was talking to a vendor last night who was owed $112,000 by the government, and Revenue and Taxes writing to him saying, you owe us $100,000. And you can see the disparity. We owe him at least $12,000. Does the Revenue and Tax regulations allow for an offset of some sort for these businesses and vendors, so their taxes can be cleared, knowing that the government owes them more than what they owe us. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you for that question. What I would say is that I hope businesses do pay their taxes so that we can pay our bills. And that would be the priority, and that is the priority of this administration. In regards to your question regarding offset, no, there is no statute that allows us to do that, and so we must remain with the current procedures on how to collect taxes and how that is paid for. Currently, the offset provisions are only for judgments and not outstanding obligations of the government. So again, we just work within the confines of the law, and should that change, then we will implement it that way.
Would you said there's no law or the regulations don't allow it. Would you be open to the legislature introducing?
I'd be open to discussions on that,
Okay.
yes.
Because we need to figure this out. Last question. Previous legislatures have introduced legislation to merge agencies that deal with finances and streamline their offices and make it more efficient. Do you support the consolidation of offices that handle financial matters of the government? Grants office is one, public affairs office, management and budget. These all deal with finances. And it is so compartmentalized right now. So do you support legislation? And this has been an issue for the past 3 years at the legislature. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on consolidating or merging offices under the Department of Finance.
Thank you for that question. I know that that was one of the recommendations made at the fiscal summit in 2020 as something to consider to contain costs. And so that's definitely something that will be on the table for this administration as we are welcoming an update to the fiscal summit. And so yes, we are open to that. As far as supporting legislation for financial functions, I cannot say at this time until I see the legislation and what it proposes. However, what I can say is that the Department of Finance already works closely with other financial offices like the Office of Management and Budget and Grants Office, and that each office has a particular duty and due diligence in administering government funds. And those offices, and I could use OMB as an example, have really honed in on their efficiencies and are really down to just the required number of people to implement their functions, going from an office of almost 20 people to now maybe only 4. And so if you're talking about cost savings, it's already being implemented. I think what's more important is the coordination and the communication between the offices to improve processes. But again, I would not say that I don't support merging. We'd like to come to the table and see what that would look like and would it actually improve what we already have. So, yeah.
Thank you. I yield, Vice.
Thank you. Any other members? We just take a very short recess. All right, we now rise back from recess. All right, thank you very much for your time today, Acting Secretary Tracy. We wish you the best of luck as you continue on, pending the confirmation of the Senate. Upon speaking with the members, we are We will be making that recommendation to the full body of the Senate for your confirmation. However, it'll be contingent upon that one document that is missing from our file and may have been just lost within lost in between. And so after we receive that, we'll prepare the committee report so that the full body may act on it. And so at this time, Acting Secretary, you are hereby excused, and we will notify you of when that confirmation for the full body will be. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. At this time, members, we now move on to the next item on the agenda, miscellaneous. Any matter? I recognize
I
the
just
chair.
wanted to inform the members that the next confirmation hearing is scheduled for next week, Tuesday. And the notice of that meeting has already been issued.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Additionally, for fiscal affairs, I will try to get the memo out later on this afternoon or tomorrow. We are scheduled to meet next Wednesday to tackle on the fiscal year 23 budget, so that we can try to adopt it next Wednesday. Next Wednesday. No, but I'll email the notice to have them posted over the weekend, if anything. At this, any other announcements or miscellaneous? If not, I recognize Senator Mendiola for the proper motion.
Chairman Pro Tem, at this time, I move for adjournment.
Second,
All right, motion was made and seconded. Discussion.
ready?
Ready? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Committee meeting is hereby adjourned at 4:02 p.m.